Hello and welcome to the history of Maritime Wrestling. I'm the Maritime Warrior, and on this episode we will be covering the first half of East Coast Pro Wrestling. After the closure of Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling, Real Action Wrestling, and Atlantic Coast Wrestling, a promotion needed to come along to keep Maritime Wrestling alive, and that was ECPW. East Coast Pro Wrestling would start up in 2003. This makes ECPW the longest running maritime wrestling promotion currently. That first season in 2003, they would bring back a legendary rivalry from Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling and Real Action Wrestling. This was Wildman Gary Williams versus Chi Chi Cruz. They would main event almost every show that season. Other stars that would be in the company in 2003 would include Scott Savage, Lincoln Steen, Trash Canyon, Vinny Glide, Duke McIsaac, Sarah Stock, Cowboy Mike Hughes, Cinder, Tony Armstrong, and Marco Estrada. ECPW would not return in 2004, but they would return in 2005 with a huge bang. Their first show back in 2005 would be the Maritime Cup 2 tournament. The winner of this one-night tournament would also be crowned the first ever East Coast Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. The competitors in the Maritime Cup 2 would include Duke McIsaac, Trash Canyon, Wildman Gary Williams, Scott Savage, and Kingman. The finals would see Kingman defeat Duke McIsaac to be crowned the first ever ECPW Heavyweight Champion. Only 4 days later, Duke McIsaac would get a rematch versus Kingman, and he would win the ECPW Heavyweight Championship. Other wrestlers that competed for ECPW in 2005 would include Zero, Lincoln Steen, Cinder, Tony Armstrong, Vinny Glide, and Paco Loco. ECPW would not have a season in 2006, but they would come back in 2007 with a show in September. The main event of that show would see TNA wrestler Bobby Roode return to the Maritimes to take on WWE Hall of Famer Tito Santana. Tito Santana would get the win. Also that night, Cowboy Mike Hughes beat Duke McIsaac to win the ECPW Heavyweight title. Other wrestlers on that card would include Titus, Scott Savage, Purity Saint, the future Wayne Jugs going by the name of Chris Madison, Crystal Lynn Scott, Julian Young, Sidewinder, Zero, Lincoln Steen, Adam DeJesus, Tommy Osborne, Jamie Hamilton, the future Troy Merrick, at this point going by the name of Sexton Phoenix, and the Wildman Gary Williams. ECPW would return in 2008. In June, both Billy Gunn and Al Snow would wrestle for ECPW. Billy Gunn would beat Brody Steele, and Al Snow would challenge Cowboy Mike Hughes for the ECPW Heavyweight Championship. Mike Hughes would get the win. In September, ECPW would bring both Joey Mercury and Eugene to the show. Joey Mercury would lose his match to Titus, and Eugene would challenge Cowboy Mike Hughes for the ECPW Heavyweight title. Mike Hughes would get the win. In November of that year, Bushwhacker Luke was brought in to challenge Cowboy Mike Hughes for the ECPW Heavyweight title. The match would end in a no contest. Both Titus and Brody Steele would interfere, and the match would be turned into a tag team match where Titus would team up with Bushwhacker Luke to battle the Cardinal Sinners, Cowboy Mike Hughes and Brody Steele. East Coast Pro Wrestling would return in 2009, and the hot storyline would be Titus chasing Cowboy Mike Hughes and the ECPW Heavyweight title. Titus would challenge numerous times, but would always fall short to Cowboy Mike Hughes. Other stars in ECPW in 2009 would include Sexton Phoenix, Chris Cook, Lincoln Steen, Julian Young, Alexander Saint, Adrian Starr, Ryan Storm, Robbie McAllister, Nick Teeth, Wildman Gary Williams, Double XL, and the B Machine. Mainstream wrestling stars that were brought into ECPW in 2009 would include Val Venus, Tracy Brooks, and Rhino. ECPW would return in 2010 and they would introduce a brand new championship, the ECPW New Era Championship. Sexton Phoenix would be the one to win the title first in a fatal four-way match, also involving Riddick Stone, Julian Young, and Titus. Gangrel would be brought in to challenge Cowboy Mike Hughes for the ECPW Heavyweight Championship. Cowboy Mike Hughes would get the win. At the end of the 2010 season, ECPW would not run another show until 2017. This is where this episode will stop, but part 2 will be coming in the near future. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you next week.